Why do we do it? This running thing. It comes up all the time, doesn't it? It's probably it's different for different people at different times. Why do we run? Um, One thing's for sure though, at some stage, it's not easy. I watched a couple of weeks ago, I watched people doing the UTMB, or you can watch any 100-mile trail race and look at people. And when they're deep in the race, sometimes they look very unhappy. And I think to myself, why are they doing that to themselves? Then I remember being in the med tent at the Quebec Mega Trail. Liz would know because she was watching me as I was lying in the med tent, verging on heat stroke. That's the Quebec Mega Trail 50K race. Not even the long races. My daughter Susie and all our team members were crowded around me with a look on their face that basically said the same thing that I've just said. Why do you do this to yourself? Then last week I saw my son-in-law Brandon, his badly blistered feet as he takes on the training program for his first ever half marathon. He's not an endurance runner, but he decided to take on the challenge of a half marathon. Whatever level you're at, basically, it's going to get hard at some stage. And probably dealing with the hard is going to change you in some way for the better, and maybe forever. So, hi and welcome to Running Book Reviews podcast, where we review books written for runners, about runners, and by runners to help you decide if you'd like to read the book for yourself. We also hope that listening to us chat about running can help keep you motivated about your own running, or maybe just inspire you to try something different. My name's Alan, and with my co-host Liz, we're going to talk today with author Susie Chan about her book, Trails and Tribulations, The Running Adventures of Susie Chan.
Trails and Tribulations is Susie's memoir. She tells us a little about her life before running, including some pretty big life challenges, events. I don't know how you'd categorize these. She talks about how she started running and some of her very, 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 I don't know how many varies I should put in there, long runs. And we'll probably get into that. A few of the races that Susie did and talks about include Marathon des Sables. She did that one more than once. This is a self-supported multi-day stage race through the desert, and she could probably describe what all that entails in terms of self-supported, because that's the key word here. Alan and I have done stage races. They were in no way self-supported. She's done the Jungle Ultra, another self-supported multi-day stage race, this time through the jungle. A 24-hour track race. She's done the Badwater 135, which is 135 miles through the hottest place on earth. So she's pretty much a badass and talks about all of these. I mean, just to do one of these things in a lifetime is quite an accomplishment, but she's done all of those. So a little bit about Susie. Susie Chan is an acclaimed endurance runner known for her incredible achievements in some of the world's most challenging ultramarathons. Susie has completed the Marathon des Sables more than any other UK woman and was the first European woman to conquer the Badwater Ultra Cup, which includes the infamous Badwater 135. In 2016, she broke the world record for the furthest distance run on a treadmill in 12 hours. And Susie now inspires audiences worldwide with her motivational speeches. She also motivates athletes as a Peloton instructor. Welcome to the podcast, Susie.
Hello. That's the first time in my life I've been introduced as an author, and it made
Oh,
me
there you
feel a
go.
bit like,
Yes, that's imposter syndrome. We all get that when we like do
yes,
things
I was
for the
like,
first time. Yeah. That's okay because you are an author because we have proof in our hand right here.
oh, thank you.
Mm.
Yeah, my
Yeah.
book. Yes, what
Yes.
a yeah, it still feels a little bit surreal because people are starting to read it and I'm getting sort of mentioned in social media and I see those things. It still feels a little bit like a slightly out of body experience that one, I've written a book
Hmm.
and two, that people are enjoying reading it, which is I'm just getting used to it all still.
So, how did you decide to write this book? And also, just because you've done all these hard races, was
Mm.
writing a book more or less challenging than running one of those ultras?
So I didn't really, I'll be really honest with you, I didn't really want to write this book. I was asked, the publishers reached out to me and said, do you want to write a book? And I was like, absolutely not. No, mainly that imposter syndrome that you mentioned. I was like, I don't think so. There's better runners, there's more interesting people. All of those sort of insecurities were like, no, I don't want to write a book. And they sort of left me alone. And then they came back again and then asked me. And then it is very flattering to be asked to write a book. And I just wasn't sure. I didn't feel confident. And then sort of a couple of things happened. One, we had lockdown and we came in and out of that. And I think a lot of people emerged from lockdown with a sort of new zest for life and
Hmm.
appreciation for the things which were available to us.
Hmm.
I came out of lockdown and I entered into I applied to try and get into a race of my dreams, a race I really wanted to do, and I was accepted. And that really was a big catalyst for me in writing my book because I thought in my head, this is the final chapter. Because I didn't know where it went. I didn't know where my life was sort of how it would end. I'm just keep on doing all these races, but this one particular race, which you mentioned, which was Badwater 135, that would be the natural end to the book. So I then said yes to writing the book. And to answer the second part of your question, with not much foresight, because then what happened was I got into the biggest race of my life and I had to write a book at the same
Oh
time.
no.
So sort of, it was it was a very, very, very busy few months for me, which I think I did reach the end of my tether because I work full time. I work as a Peloton instructor and it's quite a high energy job. I have to be very present, very motivating, and there's actually quite a lot of work goes on behind the scenes for each one of those classes. We have to sort of take a lot of time to prepare, and there's meetings and production, and all sorts of things. So it's full time. So I was doing that, and then I was training for the race of my life, which involved many, many miles and very specific training. And then around that, I was writing a book, and in my head, when I said yes to writing a book, and I did this maybe for about the first 4 weeks, I would sit down and I'd have everything all laid out, all nice. I'd have a little lamp on. I'd have, the creative juices flowing, and I would write and then rewrite my story. I think I did that for about one or two chapters, and then I just sort of ran out of time really, and I ended up just just it was just coming out of me. It just had to come out in quite a natural way without too much rewriting and overthinking, which I think with hindsight was actually the best way for it to come out because it comes out it's exactly like I'm talking to you now.
You know, they say that about like writing a math test. You know, when you're in school and you're writing a
Yeah,
math test, and like
yeah,
if you have time at the end, they say go revise your answers. And
yeah.
sometimes if you do have time at the end, it's almost a curse because if you go and revise it, you change it, but you change it for
Yeah.
the wrong answer.
It's like answering a quiz on TV. You go with your instinct, and
Hmm.
then if it's too much, you change your mind, then you give the wrong answer, and you were right first time. It's so
Yeah.
in a way, and it took me in a way, it was kind of like a blessing, and I definitely work better with deadlines. And the publishers were like, "This is your deadline. This is your deadline." And I said, "Keep pushing me, otherwise, I'm just going to keep rewriting this first chapter until
Mm.
until I have no time." And so what came out was quite a raw. Um, Sort of account of some of the things I've done, and then I did get the opportunity to edit things down, or just to be a bit more choosy about some of the stories I told. There were so many events and races and things, and absolutely heaps of them aren't in the book. We sort of did some of the highlights. I mean, running itself, I'm going to say this, not a running books podcast, is the actual action of running itself, the one foot from the other, is quite boring. But
Yeah, it's
what running
monotonous.
brings is very monotonous. It's like I can't just write about just running. But what is wonderful are some of the places I've been, some of the people I've met, and some of the things that it has taught me. So it has really enriched my life
Hmm.
in more ways than just going out and doing a 20-minute run just to be fit. So there's a lot captured in there.
I think one of the things I'll say this in the summary at the end, um, is that, reading it reads very easily because
Mm,
you're kind of comfortable in the reading and you're going
yeah.
along. It's almost like, oh, I'm in the group that Susie's
Yeah.
doing this rush. And I think that's your natural storytelling style that you haven't, made it super formal, and it's easy to sort of feel like you're there with you. Um,
Oh,
so
that's
it
that's
keeps
lovely.
your approach to be more natural and less edited is probably a good one. Um,
Oh, thank
it's
you. That's good feedback.
it's interesting, hearing you about, oh, I'm a Peloton presenter, and you go,
Mm,
oh, that's kind of, you got to be present. You got to be,
mm.
presentation is super important. You got to be on, and you got to be motivated, whether you are or not. You've got to be motivated,
Yeah.
and it's sort of a huge extrovert type thing. Like, here I
Mm,
am, and I'm carrying you along with me, and come along
yeah.
for the ride. But when I read your book, you started out like as this little mouse
Oh,
sort of
yeah.
person in a museum. You seem
Yeah,
to
I was
be
very,
like an introvert geek into museums.
yeah,
So
100%. Yeah.
how come that? You seem to
I
have
don't,
like you've changed. You've gone into a telephone box and come out as a super person or something. I don't know. Um, so how come
yeah.
the first thing and then how come the second thing?
So genuinely, and I genuinely, it has been running, which has changed me and how I view myself and my confidence levels. When I was in my 20s, I can remember I wouldn't speak. Like even in a small meeting of say 5 people, even if I had something that really needed to be said, I just wouldn't say a word. I was too
Mm,
shy. And I worked in this museum environment and I had to give a talk once and it was so awful. I just got up halfway through and locked myself in the bathroom and I didn't come out. And I never
Oh
spoke.
no.
It was awful. It was awful. I mean, I'm still dying inside a little bit, just admitting that to you. And
yeah.
I was so, and then I carried with me this fear of public speaking for over a decade. It was so awful. I was just crippled with just sort of fear of saying anything, and I had no confidence at all. And then I sort of carried on through my professional life, sort of swerving any opportunity to speak out loud possible. And then a really lovely boss of mine sort of recognized this, and she said, "I'm going to ask you to speak." And I was like, "Absolutely not. I'd rather resign." And she was like, "What are you talking about?" And I went to a course for public speaking, which was a real eye opener. I had to do this quite intensive, like 10-day course, and actually that was quite transformative in making me realize that it's me or me. So that was one sort of catalyst. But then whilst this was all happening, I started to run, and I think like a lot of people, when you start running, it was just me sort of trying not to let anybody see me that I was out running. And then as I grew as a runner, I went quite quickly from being just somebody who was running by myself to ending up doing some of these races. Each time I crossed the finish line, each time I finished a run, I felt a bit better about myself. And I went through a phase there at the beginning, which I think a lot of runners go through, where it's a lot of PBs because everything's new.
Mhm.
And
Yes.
I'm
Mm.
learning a lot, and each thing was feeding into my confidence. And I can remember somebody asking me to talk about running. And I was like, sure, because I was so enthused about this new hobby I had. And I was talking away about running, and I thought, there's nothing I can't say which isn't true to me. And realizing that I could talk about running, no problem, to like 6 people, but I couldn't
Hmm.
speak in the work environment. And then slowly it changing how I felt about myself and my confidence, and then sort of fast forwards to where I am now. I mean, honestly, Alan, I'm not sure how I got this job. I think I didn't document. I sort of social media started to write when it was. I think Instagram was literally like 2 years old or something when I started my running journey, and I started to document it. And as we all know, sort of talking into this is what I'm doing. I do, this is what I'm eating today, and it sort of coincided. And you can talking to your phone's one thing, but then you sort of a bit disconnected from the hundreds of thousands of people that are actually watching it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
because sometimes you don't realize, like, you don't realize how many, yeah, right?
Oh,
I mean, because at first, and also when you start, it's like there's 6 people following you, right? So it doesn't really matter. You're
yeah,
like, wow, I'm just talking to these 6 people.
fine. And then it slowly sort of just built, and then I just got a call from Peloton, and I can remember vividly thinking, well, one, like first thing I said was, "Do you know how old I am?" Um, I thought they'd want somebody younger than me. I'm 49 now. They called me when I was 47. I was like, okay, um, but I just thought I'm sort of very myself on that platform. I mean, if you're going to run with me, it's literally like I'm in my book. It's like we're running together. You're just my mate. We're just going to have a run. We're going to have a chat. I'm going to get you moving. I might give you a bit of tough love. I might, say something which might resonate. But it's more of a sharing space if you come running with me on that platform rather than me sort of yelling at you to get faster.
Okay. So it's not like a spin class. It's like a going
For the
for
night.
a.
Depends. If you pick an advanced class, then I'm gonna push through a
Okay.
little.
Okay.
I'm gonna get a bit hardcore on you, but it depends on the class. But very much, I decided when I went to auditions, I'm just gonna be exactly me. I'm not gonna pretend to be anything other than what I am, and here I
That sounds great.
am.
Very cool.
So I guess first things first,
Mm.
I guess how did you start running? Like what why? When, why, how?
So I started in I for no none of my own none of my own intuition whatever nothing from me got me started running. It was actually my brother who really tried to make me run with him because he was training to do a marathon. He wanted to do a marathon as a sort of
Oh, he
one.
wanted a running partner, so he was like, "Well, my sister's not doing
He
anything,
lived
so I
him.
might as well ask her."
Yeah. And then you could see, I mean, I used to smoke and drink a reasonable amount just because I was a bit miserable. And I think possibly he thought that woman needs to sort herself out. And just kind of like, just come for a run. And he made me sign up for a half marathon. And
So
genuinely,
running
I was
was a
like,
family intervention. Is that what you're saying?
pretty much. That's what we're saying. That's what we're boiling it down to. Yes. And he picked this sort of marathon, which was quite local to me, and was like, "Why didn't you come and run it with me?" And I was like, I didn't even know how far that was. I literally had no clue, and I was like, "Sure." So I said yes, because there was a part of me which thought I probably need to do a bit better here. I'm sort of in my middle. I'm heading towards my 40s. And I just thought, I don't know, this is not the lifestyle. Do I want to live like this forever? And so there probably was an element of that in the back of my mind. And then I started running and, no watch. I didn't know what I was running up and down the road. And I did that, just running up and down the road, trying to get, to the next road along with that 10 more minutes on my feet. And then the short version is I stood there at the start line of that race, petrified, in a field. And then somebody leant over to me and said, "Do you like trail running?" And I was like, "What's trail running?" And he's like, it was like this whole marathon's on trails. I was like, what are trails? I didn't even know what he
Oh my
meant.
Oh
God.
no.
I had no clue. And it was like hilly. There was like
Yeah.
stiles. There were like fences to climb over and
And
mud. And
meanwhile, you had trained
Yeah.
running from your house on
You
the
just signed
street.
you just signed up for
Yeah.
two marathons, basically,
Yeah.
if
I,
it's a
I
marathon
didn't
over
even
trails.
have, yeah, I had gym shoes on. I didn't even have running shoes. I had an underwire bra on. I had no clue what I was doing. No clue.
Well, actually, this is great because this is really good for if anybody's listening that hasn't started running yet and they're
Oh,
worried that like before you start, I feel like now, especially with social media, you have all
mm.
kinds of influencers being like, before you start running, you need a
Yay.
a pair of shoes and some athletic clothing and a watch and this and that and all kinds of other things. And actually, well, you really don't because the first thing you
Oh,
need to do is start, and then maybe like if you want
All
to
of
get all
that'll
the other
come.
stuff,
Yeah.
yeah, you can get it later. But
yeah. You just
if
got
you're
to
running
want
down
to.
the block, you don't really
Yeah.
need athletic clothing yet.
You just need to be willing. I mean, I literally had like nothing was any sort of wicking fabric at all. I say there's a photo of me in the book. My brother has got his number sellotaped. He's wrapped sellotape around his body. This is how
Oh,
unprepared we were
that's
for running. We
smart.
had,
That is smart, actually.
I
we had
don't think
no
that's smart. I
clue.
think that's pretty dumb, but there you
Yeah,
Oh,
it
go.
was
I don't
pretty
know.
dumb.
I mean, he was trying to figure out how to keep it on him for the duration of the race. And
Sellotape. Yeah.
sellotape is waterproof. I think it's
We
Yeah.
pretty smart.
Yeah.
we looked like the amateurs we were in that moment. But do you know what? We thoroughly enjoyed it, and I can
Yeah.
remember. It was just I can remember. Well, I was hungover, but I can remember. It was just
Oh
so
no, you
much.
were hungover too.
Honestly, it was so much to think about. There were like trees and like mud and stones and like fences to climb over. My brain was so occupied with trying not to fall over or like try and get to the top of the hill or try not to fall that before I knew it, I'd reached 9 miles and I was like, oh my God, this is the furthest I've run in my life. And then I felt very empowered.
Hmm.
I'm gonna make it. All I need to do is just keep moving and then make it. And then I crossed that finish line. And honestly, I was absolutely broken. But it was one of the most joyous moments of my life because I just could not believe I'd run. I just could not believe that I'd run 13.1 miles. I just couldn't believe it. And I dined out on that half marathon to anybody that would speak to me at all for like 3 weeks. I've run a half marathon. I've run a half marathon. I'm just telling everyone.
You
Oh
suddenly
wow.
you suddenly become your own meme.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
was like anybody. They didn't even, how was your weekend? Ran a half, and then they're with me for half hour. I was telling them about my half marathon. They've stopped listening.
You
Like I'm
suddenly
still
become an
talking.
extrovert.
Yeah, I'm talking about my half marathons. Anyone? Yeah, exactly. So this is what happened. So I slowly got more and more.
Yeah.
My confidence grew with each time I ran, and then the other great thing about running is like the environment. The people are so enabling, aren't they? And so
They
friendly.
are.
Yeah.
And the more you hang around them, the more normal these things seem.
Become. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Because when I tell my colleagues at work that I'm going for a run and it's like, I don't know, it's a hot day because we get in Montreal, we get like, very cold winters, but we also get like very hot summer days. So it might be, 30 degrees plus humidity. So it feels like 38 or something.
Okay.
And I'll be like, well, I gotta go. It's 4 p.m. I'm going for my run. And they'll be like, what?
Yes,
It's like,
yes,
I didn't take the dog out today. You're gonna go
yeah.
for a run.
Yes. Yes.
I hesitate to tell them how far I'm going to run
Yeah.
too, because that
Yeah.
just becomes a whole other story, you know?
I've
And yeah,
lied in shops before and I'm just buying some electrolytes. Like, what are you buying them for? I'm like, oh, just, I'm just gonna do some just like a 5 mile run.
yeah,
And I
I
look
just
at them,
want
I'm
them
like,
in
oh,
case I want
I
them in
don't,
case I get gastro because it's gastro
I don't want to
season.
get in the conversation. Yeah, yeah.
So, in terms of when you started running, because I know that you had a pretty difficult, I guess, first like 25-ish years of your life. I mean, with
Yeah.
just your husband that you well, I think you had your daughter and
Yeah.
then you met somebody that seemed really great
Yeah.
afterwards and
Yeah.
he wasn't so
Sure.
great.
No. No, well,
And
I don't think he was a bad person, but it wasn't a great situation to be stuck in. I mean, all the juicy details are in the book,
they
but
are,
it
yeah. So you don't have to tell us that part, but in terms of like where on the timeline running started to fit
yeah,
in, was it sort of like after that's deceptive?
it was all around about the same time. And actually, and it's only one of those things with hindsight. I think there was a period where I just needed to get out of the house, and so it all happened around about the same time. Um, and then I think with hindsight, running became my real crutch to take a little bit of control back in my life. It was the thing. Running's a very solo activity. I mean, I run with my friends all the time, races, you're part of the community. But in essence, you're doing a lot of training by yourself and it's very much your
Mhm.
time. So it's just me doing my thing. And I always felt better after a run. So it became a little bit of a crutch for me to get out the house to feel better. It was definitely making me feel more confident because that was a real blow to my confidence. So it was all around about the same 2 3 year period where I went from not being a runner to being a little bit sort of stuck and miserable to going into particularly ultra marathons, and that gave me enough confidence to be like, do you know what? I don't need this anymore. I'm gonna just
Yeah.
do my thing. I've had enough,
Yeah.
and draw the line and start again.
It sounds like exactly like that in the book. Seemed to me like basically you grew in your running. You eventually
Mm.
went off to do the Marathon des Sables.
Mm.
Um, and then you seem to come back and be a different person. It was like, I
Oh,
don't need this life anymore. Um,
yeah.
uh, like did the Marathon des Sables kind of transform you, or did it just put the cherry on the cake of the transformation?
I think it was. Oh, I've never been asked it quite as directly as that. Let me think. I think it was the race. Actually, it was the race. I mean, 6 days in a desert, starving to death, it gives you time to think. If you're not if you're not thinking about food, which I was thinking about a lot of the time,
What'd you get? You
the
get 2,000 calories, or is that the minimum you have
yeah,
to carry?
that's yeah. So just to
Oh, I'm
put
now giving away the fact that I've looked at the details of what's in.
oh, interest is piqued, Alan. Let's chat offline later on that. But just to put it into perspective, so into context, sorry, the Marathon des Sables, it's a 6 day multi-stage race where you run approximately, it changes each year. They don't really let you know how far you're running until you're there. I think they might have changed that, give people a bit of a heads up from now. But it's approximately 150, 160 miles. You do it
Mm.
over 5 or 6 days. And traditionally, it ends on a marathon stage, the proper 42.2 kilometers, 26 miles, and you will have an ultra marathon stage. And other than that, you're just running through sand dunes, up desert mountains, that sort of thing. And that's not what's difficult. What's difficult is you are self-sufficient. So that is you have to carry everything you need to survive for the week on your back. They provide water, and let's call it a tent, but it's
Yeah.
not really a tent. It's like a
Tent with no
blanket.
sides.
Yeah, it's got no sides. It's just like a, it's like
Like
if you were,
like a teepee kind of looking thing.
yeah, if you
Yeah.
got a 6-year-old to make a tent, this is
Mm-hmm.
the this is that sort of style.
Mm-hmm.
So you're carrying all your food is the main thing you need, and you have a minimum of 2,000 calories you need to carry. Your sleeping gear, your survival kit, and some medical stuff. And so as Alan's referring to the 2,000 calories minimum. So if you are like a big guy who like, there's a lot of big guys do that race, you're going to be able to carry a little bit more on your back. If you're me, I'm 5'3.5". I'm not very tall. And so it's a lot harder for me to carry any extra weight. So I usually go for the minimum calories, and they are miserable calories as well. They're pretty grim. Like a lot of
Okay.
things that need rehydrating because it's very light. You have to bear in mind the
Right.
weight. So everything's really super light. Need to add water. It's miserable. And you're just starving today. You're just absolutely the toughest thing about that race. There's a lot of tough things about the race, but for me, is the fact that you're so hungry. I was so hungry. I tend to lose well over half a stone every time I do that race in 5 days. It's like
Wow.
so. But it is. Having said all of that, it is the most intensely beautiful experience. So you go into it, well, as I did that first time, sort of not quite terrified, but just like, what's this going to be? I don't know what this is going to be. But then when I stood there on day one of that very first start line of the 6 days, I suddenly felt a huge sense of calm, and that I should be here. This is it. I've come home. This is this is what all my training has been for. This is where I'm meant to be, and I'm going to finish this race. And that was the first of many
Yeah.
experiences across that 6 days that empowered me. And then so much so, it really did change how I viewed myself. I went in unsure, stood there on that first day and thought, I'm sure. And I just came back like, I can do what I want. And so it was, to answer your question, Alan, it was the race. I came back thinking, do you know what? I've just run through the Sahara Desert.
Yeah.
I can do
Live by
anything.
myself.
Yeah. It's it does sound like you were transformed. And there was a big community aspect with that race, I find, because you have to share a tent with was
Yeah.
it eight? Like you're eight in a tent or you're six in a
Yeah,
tent?
we're
I can't
eight. We're
remember.
eight,
Four.
I think. Yeah,
Eight
it's
in a
eight.
tent.
Sometimes it's six if you're lucky. If you try and spread out, like you've got enough. You're too full.
And I guess like it's always going to be the same. So it sounds like you get there,
Mm,
you pick a tent or you
mm.
pick tent mates or something,
Yeah.
and then it's a race to get the best tent.
So this has changed now. This used to be
Okay.
so this they've tidied this bit up because it was chaos.
Okay.
You would land in the desert, and it's quite a big. It's like a moving camp, but it's quite big from one end to the other. I don't know.
Mm.
I don't know. I'm going to say it's quite big. It's like 600 meters, which is a long way when you've run through
Yes.
it at
Yeah.
the end of the day. And you don't want to be at the tent furthest away
For the
from the
back.
finish line.
Yeah.
I guess I get that. Yep.
You're kind of racing for like a tent which is quite well placed. And so you used to just get there and just try and absolutely leg it to the best tent, not really knowing what the best tent was. But they've tidied it up now. You just get given a number, and that's the way it is. But you do pick your tent mates. These are people you're going to basically spend 6 days with of quite extreme circumstances. You're incredibly tired, you're incredibly hungry. There's no shower. There's no shower.
Yeah.
Not
Figures.
there's no
Yeah.
bathroom. You're just it's quite
Yeah.
There's no extra water so that you could sponge bath or anything.
no, but
Because you get penalized if you take extra water. Is
you
that
do get
right?
penalised. You might see a bare arse or two. This is what we're saying here. So, you're going to choose your tent mates wisely, is what we're saying.
Okay.
But I guess you don't know that much about them, so you never really know until day three or something.
Yeah, I didn't know anybody the first time I went in, and you always what happens if you don't fill the tent, they just put random people in.
Okay. So you were one of the random people that was filled into a tent?
I knew three people, so we were like, let's
Okay.
stay together. And then the other people we didn't know, we just got paired up with some other people. And by the end of it, I mean, you're like best mates for life. There's nothing you haven't
Hmm.
shared because you get humbled
Yeah.
each day as
Hmm.
each day passes, and you just start to any reservations are completely out the window by day three, and you're just sort of completely
Yeah.
yourself. So it's friends for life, friends for life. I mean, I'm still friends with these people. The very first race, I could send them a text message right
Oh,
now.
wow. That's amazing.
How does
Yeah.
the first shower feel after the marathon des Sables?
Yeah, let's get to the
And then,
important stuff.
and then honestly, tell you, I can't tell you, I ate in the shower. It was like double whammy. It was incredible. Um, there's a video of me, and I have my hair in and I undo the ponytail, and it just stays in the same place. It's absolutely, you have to, it's just the dirt is ingrained. You need like a Brillo pad. You need something, that you scrub the hob with.
Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
ingrained in you, like 2 or 3 showers, it's still coming out, and you're like, where's this coming from? It's bliss, bliss, and things like you take for granted. Like you don't sit in a chair for a week. Like something as simple as that. There's no chairs in the desert, so you're either sitting on the
Mm,
floor
Oh,
or you're
mm,
running. Like, and so
right.
just have like something at chair height. You're like, oh, this is so luxurious.
sitting in a chair, it's glorious.
Honestly, yeah.
Okay, so when you were preparing for this extreme race, and you had no idea what you were getting yourself into, you brought something called a venom pump, and
Mm,
you only brought it because it was mandatory.
yes,
So what is it? Did you ever have to use it? Um,
yes.
yeah,
It,
tell
it's
us all
so
about this venom pump.
there's a few things
Yeah.
which are mandatory, some which are more, which get given more explanation than others. So you need to spend €200 in case you get kidnapped. That's fun. You need
Oh,
to
wow. Okay. Okay.
you need to be like a mirror on a thin piece of string. So if you are stuck in the desert, you can swizzle it around, and apparently
Ah, that's
that
smart.
reflects the
That
light.
is
Yeah.
Yeah.
smart. Yeah.
Tiny
Okay.
little,
It's a
so
good
that's on
thing they
the
make a list because I would have never thought of that.
They do, yeah. So it's like a mirror is one of them, and you think, well, I just want to look at myself, but it's actually not for the vanity;
Yeah.
it's for safety. And then another thing is a venom pump, and that is because there are some animals that bite
Scorpions and
in the
snakes.
desert, scorpions, and something even more grim called camel spiders. Would advise you, if
Ooh.
you don't like spiders, don't Google it. If you don't mind seeing what they look like, have a Google because they are not fun. I am absolutely arachnophobic. I'm terrified of spiders, and so
Okay,
I
wait, but
Mm.
wait. But like if you're gonna go in the environment where these camel spiders are, wouldn't you want to go see what they look like so that if you get bit by
You could
one, like you
recognize
at
one.
least know that
you
that's
could
what you were bitten by?
yeah
Or is it
you
like pretty
it's pretty
self-explanatory? Like
big.
they have a big
It's
hump on
pretty
their back.
yeah, no, they're called camel spiders because when they bite camels, the camel's leg dies.
Oh, wow.
Oh my
It goes sort of
God.
Yeah, they're pretty miserable. I sort of did. I did a light Google once and never again, and they were out there. I saw them. I've seen them in our tent. That's so you need that. So it's a venom pump is basically something. If you get bitten, you put the cap on the bite and you suck it out, so you get rid of the venom. I fortunately
Hmm.
didn't have to move one because when I did see a camel spider, that was literally the fastest I moved all week. I mean, I was like a bat out of hell. I was gone. It was like 6 minute miling out of that space. I'm like, no. They were around and they do bite and they're pretty miserable and they can be quite dangerous if you don't get the venom pump on them. So that's what a venom pump is. I haven't had to
Oh,
use it.
Oh,
I
that's
think I'd
cool.
be so panicked. And it had like different heads for different sizes of bites. So you have
okay.
Mm.
like a little one or like a huge one. Mm,
Okay, so this venom pump thing, it was a
yeah.
little bit of a
No,
side
the
story.
podcast is now over, Susie, because Liz is absolutely spider phobic and will go
Okay, so
on for the rest of the podcast about what could happen with this fictitious spider that she's never going to see because now she's never going to enter the marathon this hub.
Honestly, it is fine. I don't know many people that have been bitten by one, but they are about.
okay. Okay.
But I
So
mean, I
the venom pump, did you carry it as,
you
you
have
have
to.
the straps in the front, like where you put all your really important things,
No,
and
it was
normally
buried
you'll
in the
carry
back.
hyd Oh
No, it was
no.
all the
But
food was
then
there. It was buried in
well,
the back.
well, that's it. I was gonna ask, like, how do you decide? Like venom pump, water bottle, like, I don't know. They're both
I had all that
important.
stuff. It was water and food always up front, always water and food. And then and then the very first years I did it, we had a distress flare. This is how old it was. And this thing was huge. You'd have to like I didn't even know which way up to point the thing, so I wouldn't know what I'd do. But somebody set one off near me when somebody collapsed, and it's huge. So that has to be on the outside because you don't want that going off in your bag because it's
Oh,
going to
Yeah.
rip a hole through your sleeping bag.
okay.
But it was always food up front. The venom pump was always buried because you were either move when you were moving through the desert, you could probably run away from one. I mean, they
Yeah.
do move. Apparently, they can run quite fast, but they're not going to come at you.
Okay.
They do like to find their ways in things. So I would always put my trainers in my sleeping bag,
Smart.
tie my
Mhm.
bag up and use that as a pillow so nothing could climb in. But they always said make sure your trainers aren't exposed because they like to hide in them. Um,
Oh.
and they
Hmm.
like to find the nooks and crannies in the tent. So I never was in the corners of the tent. I was always like, I'm staying
In the
not in the
middle.
middle. They sometimes like to go up the pole.
Oh God.
Yeah,
Oh boy.
they're
Okay.
horrible.
Oh,
But
pro tip. Pro tip.
Liz, I did in another race have to run through something called Tarantula Alley, which didn't get in the book. Horrible, horrible, horrible.
Oh, why do
Oh,
they call
that'd
it
be fun.
Tarantula Alley?
Of go.
Because
Well, what do you mean? Why did they call it Tarantula Alley?
How
Oh.
many are there living there in that
well, it
alley?
was. I didn't see any, thank God. But
Okay.
it's a section in a race in Costa Rica where you're running through the back of the beach, and it's just an. I didn't know that's what they were, and I wish I never asked. You're just running through tarantula nests, and they're just holes. I know,
Yeah, but
Oh.
you're
loads
much
of
bigger
holes.
than spiders. They're not going to bite you on purpose.
Honestly,
You just have
I
to be
I
know.
know,
careful
but they're
not to
so
have an accident.
small. They're so small. You might like trip and fall because you're running
Honestly,
in the trail. So you trip over a rock, then you
yes.
fall, and then
And
they
then you're
all
in a
like
tarantula
climb
nest.
on
Yeah.
Yes,
you.
Yeah.
Yes, and they
honestly.
As
all.
I said,
Liz,
the podcast's over.
I hate spiders, Liz, and I it is my number one thing that I think about. I don't think about am I going to dehydrate? Am I going to never
Hmm.
make it up that sand dune or mountain? I think what's this? Can I just evaluate the health and safety spider?
Spider
The
situation.
Yeah.
Okay,
what is it
okay,
out of
so
10?
okay, so let's use that to move on to something called the Jungle Ultra
Oh
because
God.
this does not sound like a place where spiders will be missing.
Mm,
Yeah.
Although, so in the book you actually described how the Jungle Ultra it was your husband that wanted to do it at
yes.
first. That's who came up with the idea. You're still
Not that
married,
one.
so
A different husband by this point, everyone
Yeah.
in the
This is
book.
Sean.
oh, okay. Well,
Just
Yeah.
okay. So anyway, at the time, and so you
Yeah.
kind of got dragged into this, but you seemed to have a pretty positive outlook about the Jungle Ultra because you're like, oh, the jungle, it's warm there. I'm good with heat. And see,
yeah.
I would have exactly the same thoughts because I'm good on a hot day, right, Alan? Alan
Yes,
is
you
the one
are.
that suffers in the heat
I
because
do.
yeah, usually Alan is a bit faster than me in training, and I have a hard time like I'm running behind him. But like if it's a hot day in Montreal, I'm like right up there, and I'm just like, "Oh, Alan, isn't this run great?" And
No.
he's like, "Well, no, not really."
Okay.
So so this Jungle Ultra, how far was it from your expectation of what it was going to be?
It was very far. I had seen it on TV. There was a little documentary on the sort of quite a channel, quite sort of deep down in the numbers, and I was like, oh, that looks fine. That looks quite fun. I love multi-stage races.
Mm-hmm.
Into a jungle, and then it looked manageable on paper. It looked manageable. It's the same format as the Marathon des Sables, which I'd done multiple times. Self-sufficient again. However, they did give you water and hot water, which was blissful. Um, they didn't give you a tent though, so you sort of had a hammock, which was pretty miserable.
That was the
Um,
mandatory gear. Did you have to carry that? You have to
yes, you had to
carry that,
carry a
right?
hammock. And you had
Okay.
to carry a hammock and your sleeping bag
So
and
this
all your
was not a luxury hammock. This was like basically a string with some kind of material in the middle to hold you up.
yeah, it was. I never ever got the hang of that thing. Literally, I was dreadful at it. Terrible. I tried once before. There were when I say it was far from my expectations. What happened was I didn't really do my homework, Liz, and if I had done my homework, I would have realised what I was letting myself in for. So the documentary looked okay because the jungle is so impenetrable. The film crew
Couldn't get
couldn't
in.
get to couldn't get to 90% of the course. They could only get to the bits which weren't
Oh,
visible. So the real stuff was happening really, really deep into the jungle. And just to give you
Yeah.
an example, one of the checkpoints on one of the days, this happened on multiple days. It was so deep in the jungle, the people manning that checkpoint had to set out the day before to set out to trek for
Wow.
19 hours to set up a checkpoint through the jungle. So the film crew is not going there. So that was number one. I didn't really get the full representation of how tough it was. And the other thing was I didn't do my admin very well. So anything which I call it admin, which isn't the actual running itself, is all the other things you need to do to look after yourself in the race. So aftercare, recovery, making sure your nutrition's on, all of those things, foot care. My admin was really off going into the jungle. I had only tried hanging up a hammock once in my life. It didn't go very well, and I just couldn't do it. So I was lying normally in a really uncomfortable V-shaped position where it slid down the bark, or I was lying on the floor of the jungle.
Oh
I hadn't
no.
really waterproofed anything enough, and I fell into a river like day one or day two, and my sleeping bag got wet, and it was so humid it never dried again for the whole week. So I was trying to recover by getting into a wet sleeping bag, and then all
Oh
my food
God.
had got wet. There were ants buried in, they sort of burrowed their way into my food packs.
Oh no.
Many things were challenging in that race.
Oh.
And
I
that's
mean, you got extra protein that way, I guess. Did you
I did.
because you
That's what
ate them anyway,
I
right?
had to. I just didn't
Yeah.
have had no other calories to eat. And I started to
Yeah.
pick them out. And I was going practically feral by day four. So I was not thinking. So I was just like, I'm just going to eat this. I'm just going to eat this. So just eating it with the ants in
Don't
it. Like,
think
oh
about it, just eat. Yeah.
Yeah.
God. Yeah.
Oh
It was
wow.
tough, tough. It was a very, very, very tough terrain, very hard going underfoot, more elevation than I've ever done in my life, before or after. Um, and just emotionally quite a tough one. I wanted to stop that race, and I couldn't because I was so deep in the jungle. There was no real other option to, than to finish.
Yeah, you had to walk your way out, I guess. I mean, unless you break something, which I don't
Well,
know if
you're
you
gonna have to.
contemplated that, but
Yeah, I mean, even my husband got very, very unwell. He nearly died in that race, and he he nearly died, and he needed, I don't know, like 9, 12 drips to be brought back from the edge, and he still had to walk out the jungle after resting for 7 hours. He still had to
wow.
walk
Yeah.
for about 5 hours to get out to the nearest
Serious
road.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yes,
They, they
it's
can't
very
they
serious.
can't helicopter you out.
They thought about extraction for him, but it would have been they were weighing up. It was the time really, so it would you'd
Yeah.
have to one find you. We had trackers on, but it we'd have to get somewhere where the helicopter could sort of lower something down. Apparently,
Hmm.
he'd still have to walk for I don't know 2 hours, and he was getting better by that point. But yeah, extraction is a thought, but you're still
It's still
hours
hard.
away. I mean,
Yeah.
you're in the middle of nowhere. It's the size of Portugal, this jungle. So you'd still, and the hospital's in like Cusco, which is like getting a helicopter from Portugal to France. So it's quite a long way.
Wow.
You don't think about that really. You think about, oh, it'll be tough and oh, I'll have to tough it out and it'll be awful and but if something actually goes wrong,
Yeah, yeah, it's
you're
serious.
you're
That's probably the
you're far,
closest I've been
far
to death
away.
in that one. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's probably the closest I've been to death. I fell into a very fast flowing river, and I was so fatigued. And there was a lot of rocks, and I was just bouncing off these rocks, thinking this is not a good situation.
Oh
And
no.
I was so focused on trying to get out of the river, which I managed to do. And I was clinging onto the side, and it was like a steep bank, and it was a lot of foliage, and I was just trying to then drag myself upstream. It was either to get onto the bank to go through what is essentially thick jungle or go up the river. And I managed to, and I had to do that for maybe about an hour and a half before I got back on track. But it was only with hindsight about 3 weeks later, I was like, could have died.
Oh boy. You know, it's actually kind of good that our brain likes to preserve
Yeah,
us that way and not
yeah.
really think about it in the
I wasn't
moment. But
panicking.
yeah.
I was just like,
Yeah. You're just like,
get
okay,
to
I
there,
gotta get
get to there,
there. Yeah.
get to there. Yeah.
So you got these extreme events where the environment is basically imposing on you all the
Mm.
time, every second of every minute of every day for days on end, and the environment is in your face and almost challenging you. And then we see in your book, you decide at one stage, oh, maybe I'll try and set a world record on a treadmill. That's my way of
Yeah,
setting up the question to be to make you I don't know what wonder why on earth you would go from one extreme to the other.
yeah.
So where did you get the idea of running on a treadmill and then running on a treadmill for 12 hours?
Actually, out of all of the things in the book, this is the one that I feel is the most doable. Like I
Yeah.
could run on a
Oh,
treadmill for 12 hours, I think.
you could
I
do it,
can run
Liz.
for about 12 minutes and then I have to stop.
You could do it, Liz. You could do it. The thing is, let's headline this to the fact that not many people tried these, because from Alan's point of view, people think, oh, I
Oh.
couldn't do it for that long. But some people can, Liz. So this came about because a friend of mine who pops up in the book quite a bit, his name's Dr. Chris Howe. He was actually
Mhm.
back then studying for his PhD. And back then, I'm going to say, I can't remember the date of it. I'm going to get the date wrong, but probably about, I don't know, 2016, something like that. And he was studying just basically the science of ultra running, which was a very new and emerging sport then, and not many people had done much research into the effects and physiologically how it affects you, mentally, all of those things. So he needed to conduct an experiment, a series of experiments, just to use as information for his PhD. And it was very difficult to try and do an ultra marathon, as an experiment ultra marathon, without a lot of mitigating factors like the weather, like all these things that can impact on. You could pick a course, and if the weather's
Mhm.
hot one day, howling with rain the next, and you're going to actually have a very different benchmark for people
Yeah,
to
so you
to
try
run.
and take
So
variables
Yeah.
out of your
all the
experiment.
variables, yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
exactly, exactly, yeah. So all the variables were taken out, and the only way really to have a static, a very similar experiment environment for people was to do it on a treadmill in a sports lab. So this is what happened. So I said, yes, I'll do it. Not, he asked people, not many women came forward, not many people came forward. He wanted people to run 50 miles on a treadmill. He was going to take bloods. We were going to do just sort of, tests of how we were feeling mentally. He took down note of every single thing we ate, measured. There were lots of tests all the way through the 50 miles. And he got a handful of people to do this. Only, I think, two or three women signed up to it. I said, sure, I'll do it. He was my friend. He's helped me train for a lot of races. And so I turned up, and I was in the midst of Ironman training. So I didn't realize at the time that I was really fit. When you don't realize at the time that you're really fit.
Mhm.
It's only when the fitness goes, you think, I was quite fit back then. So I was
Yeah.
doing all this bike training, all this cross training, all the swimming. And so I was like, yeah, sure, I'll run 50 miles on a treadmill. Turned up, ran 50 miles. It was pretty fine. I felt pretty good. I was quite into my ultra running then, so it was just I ran it pretty fast. Um, Hopped on the treadmill, felt fine, drank and ate a little bit, hopped off, see you later, said goodbye. And I did a tweet about it. I said, oh, I just did 50 miles on the treadmill, blah, blah, blah. Forgot about it. And then a friend of mine responded saying, you do realize if you kept going, you would have broken the world record. And not many people have tried to break world records on treadmills for reasons that might suggest themselves. Um, I just thought, oh, how old was I? I was about 40, I don't know, maybe 43, 44. And I thought, not many people in their 40s get to break world records in running.
Mhm.
And so Chris Howe, he was interested in seeing if we could do it. I was interested to see if I could do it. And we wrote to Guinness World Records, and they wrote us the sort of huge missive of things we had to do's and don'ts. And we set it up as an even bigger experiment for Chris and for me to run. So fast forward a few months, and I was on this huge treadmill in his sports science lab. And I left almost everything to him. I said, just set the pace. I'm not going to ask. I'm just going to run. And then we embarked on breaking the world record. It was tough. It was
Mhm.
tough.
Yeah, but I feel like it was so tough because by then you had detrained from your Ironman training.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd kind of done the Ironman, and I'd sort of, a bit of winter had set in the UK, which meant I was probably out running less. And so I wasn't in the peak of fitness that I was when I did the 50 miles, which didn't really occur to me because I just sometimes don't think things through. So that was the fitness was tough. I was a little bit disappointed with the mileage that I did. I did break the world record, but I could have been better, I think. But also, there were things which you only really find out when you're running on a treadmill for that long. So I got very seasick, very, very seasick, which I didn't when I
Oh.
did the miler because I was on a different treadmill
Is that
facing the
because of
wall.
the bounce
It's
of the
because my
surface?
depth of field was quite
Ah,
shallow.
okay. Yeah.
So when we did the
Hmm.
50 mile, it was on a much smaller treadmill in the middle of the studio, and this one was huge. It had to be calibrated. There had to be all these different ways of proving um,
That you were really
that the
doing the
mileage was done.
mileage. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was a treadmill which we could prove all those things on. It's got full data. You can just sort of print off all the data from it. Whereas the one I did the 50 mile on was like just a little a little treadmill
Was
in
it
a
Yeah.
like
hot.
a regular
The local
treadmill?
gym. Yeah.
It was like it wasn't even that. It was an even cheaper one, I think, because they use them in their heat chambers and they sort of get full of humidity and then they chuck them in a bin and buy a new one. So it was quite a cheap one. So this one I did the world record on was a big one and it was so big it couldn't be moved in the sports science laboratory. And I was maybe about 1.5 meters from a wall. And so
Okay.
my field of vision
Yeah.
was very shallow and I was moving a lot, just jogging. And after I'm going to
Mm.
say probably about 9 hours, I was throwing up. I was just like, oh
Oh
God,
no.
Mm.
it was just, and I was trying to sort of look to the left and right just to have a slightly longer view,
Yeah.
which did sort of make me feel better. But then it was quite hard to run that fatigued, looking around all the time.
If you do
Yeah.
12 hours on a treadmill, are there like are you allowed official breaks? Because yeah, I mean,
So
you've got to have
you can have
toilet
as many.
stops, one assumes.
Yeah, you can have as many breaks as you like, but obviously it puts a dent in your average minute
Ah,
miles.
okay. So you don't
So
have to be continuous. It's just the
no,
mileage.
I was though. I was. I mean, I had a toilet break. So in order to step off, you weren't allowed to touch it at all. You weren't allowed to touch the bars. You weren't allowed to touch anything. You just had to have your feet on the belt. And if I wanted the loo break, which you have to do after 12 hours, is you have to bring it to a complete halt, step off, and step back on again. The clock stays running. So you want to minimize as much of that as
Okay.
possible to keep the distance. So anytime you did that, it really impacts on your minute miles. So
Okay.
I
So you got to prove that the belt is not moving without you on it, so to
the
speak.
whole
You're
thing's
not
filmed. Yeah,
cheating. Yeah.
you've got witnesses, independent witnesses. The whole thing was being live streamed. It was filmed. We were open
That's
to the public. Yeah, the
that's
whole
going to be
thing's
the most boring 12-hour
Wow.
film in existence. The
it
live
is out there
stream
on
of
YouTube.
Susie Chan
Yeah,
on the treadmill.
I think it's still out there somewhere on YouTube. Just me
But
slowly
You should have
dying.
done a little Peloton session in the middle. Okay, we're going to do one
Could
hour of
have,
Peloton.
I
or
hadn't
you
learned
do
those
like
skills.
12 Peloton sessions back to back and it'll keep you like, I don't know,
Honestly, I wish
motivated.
I don't think Peloton. I was it in. No, it was just a bike then. I think it was just a bike. But
Yeah,
honestly, if I knew of a Peloton class back then, I would have lapped it up because it was incredibly monotonous.
yeah, yeah. So, but not monotonous enough because it was only 12 hours. So
Hmm.
you decided you'd go for a bigger monotony by entering into the 24-hour track race.
Mm.
So
This is
12
yeah.
hours is just not boring enough. Let's double down and go for 24.
Yeah. So this is probably one of the harder things to explain to people. I've said, oh, I've run through a jungle, and somehow people seem to be like, okay, more
Yeah.
than I've run around a 400-meter track for 24 hours.
No, that's
Um,
just crazy. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I don't know. Out of the two, I'd rather run around a track for 24 hours.
did
Yeah, but
you?
Just
you're a
me. I don't know.
Liz is a special type of person, I think.
I think Liz
I think you're
needs to
soulmates.
explore. Yeah,
Yes. Yeah. I think
I
maybe we
think
should start running together. We
I
should sign
like,
up for something.
honestly, this is the sort of thing which draws me in. Something like that. A lot of the 100 miles I've done have been like a straight line road.
Oh, yeah. Love straight line roads.
Straight line
Oh
road.
my
That's it.
God.
Just like road,
I
100
thought you were
miles.
the only one in the
See,
world, Liz.
yeah, you thought so. See, my husband also thought I was the only one, but I'm really
Oh,
happy
here we
to
are.
find out that I'm not.
We are friends. So it was I just wanted to see what it felt like. And in a way, to two runners, just to explain it to other runners, probably less so to people that aren't runners. Um, it's the purest thing I've ever done. I'm not going anywhere. I am not seeing anything. I am just running. It's
Mhm.
just running. And that's what I'm doing for 24 hours. I mean, you change direction every 4 hours, which is absolutely thrilling.
Yeah,
Thrilling.
yeah. I guess it breaks
The
it
high
down.
point
It
of the
breaks it
day.
down. But you know what though? Like it's a bit like the treadmill. Like I find the beauty of both of those things is that you don't have to plan to carry a pack. You're
Yeah.
kind of you're free. You just run because every 400 meters, you could get your water on the
Yeah,
side of the
Liz,
track.
we're on the same page.
Yeah.
Liz gets it. Liz understands it. Yeah. It's just it was something so simple about it. It was so simple. Um, I didn't have, sometimes I've been in ultra marathons and I've like looked up and there's like a huge mountain. I'm like, oh, what now? Like, no surprises, no surprises. You just know what's what, and you have to be really smart well, which I don't think I was really, but you have to be really careful. In a lot of those 24-hour track races, there's some proper elites which do some insane distances and speeds
Mm.
on them, and they're trying to qualify for in the UK particularly as a GB vest to be an ultra part of the ultra team. I'm not that level, but you have to be very smart because you've got to manage your energy. It's perfectly flat, and you've got to manage your energy for 24 hours. And actually, what happens is there's a lot of casualties in those races, and not. I think by the time I finished, I think 50% of the people had dropped.
Oh,
And I
wow.
managed,
Yeah.
yeah, it was an enormous dropout rate, and I am bang average, Liz, at ultra running, and I got on the podium because I just didn't stop. I just didn't stop. I just kept going round and round and round and round. And then they got to a point in the race, so they had a board, and it was like the top 20 people, and there's only like 50 people take part because you can't have
Hmm.
too many people, and I wasn't on that board for like 15 hours. And then I was at the
Hmm.
bottom of like 20th. And then I just slowly went up as more and more people dropped out. And then it got to the point where I realized that I was in for a chance of getting on the podium. And the woman ahead of me was walking and I was running. And I was like, right. And then I started running. And she was like 3 laps ahead of me or something. So I started running. And then she started running. And we are both running very, very slowly in a
So,
shuffling, like a painful,
so it's a
painful
slow
run.
motion
It
throwdown
was like
for
it
third
was like
place.
it was like the most painful slow motion sprint. Like we were just like, oh God, let me get it. It was hilarious. Yeah.
So did you overtake this woman? I
I
know the
did, yeah.
story
I
because
beat
I've
her.
read the book, but I'm asking
Hmm.
for
Yeah.
the listeners.
I beat her by 400 meters 1 lap.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Did
It's
you or her
incredible.
say anything when you passed her?
Oh, we
Oh,
knew, yeah.
yeah.
I think she knew, but she's a very accomplished runner. I've seen it on the scene. She
Okay.
she would literally. I was like done. That was me done for the rest of the year. She would go and run another 100 miler 3 weeks later. So she was one of these
Okay.
people that like churns them out. So she
Yeah.
was like,
Wow.
fine. Yeah, I know.
Okay.
She would have her day
Jeez.
somewhere else. Yeah.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
that's incredible. So, you've done all distance of races because eventually you and some friends wanted to do some marathons, in
Mm,
particular the World Marathon Majors. But through
Yeah.
that sort of journey, it seems like you also had some health issues.
oh yes,
So,
yeah.
and with the health issues, it seemed like this is what it seemed like when I was reading the book. It just seemed like you started to feel kind of off,
Mm,
where you were just like fatigued and just like
yeah.
not yourself and dragging your feet, and you would kind of just put certain things off to like, well, you're training a lot and maybe it's this, maybe it's that, because it's easy to do, right? Because it sounded like it sort of crept up on you. um and because you were training so hard, some of the symptoms you could attribute to training.
Mm.
If you look back, so I don't know if you want to just say what ended up happening to the listeners, but if you could look back um, at the way that things happened, would you have maybe seen a doctor sooner? Do you have any advice to share with listeners just about maybe what kind of things sort of were red flags that in hindsight you say, okay, I should have probably consulted at this point?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I had cancer and I didn't know. I had thyroid cancer. So your thyroid, I knew nothing about thyroids until this. Your
Hmm.
thyroid, it controls quite a lot of your body and releases a lot of hormones and really affect how you're feeling day to day. And as Liz mentioned, some of the symptoms for that, they're very vague. And they can be attributed to a number of things. So the symptoms I was suffering from were like I was really tired, um, really kind of like fatigued. I thought, am I running too much? I was getting a lot slower in my running, feeling very
Yeah.
sluggish. It was like maybe I'm running too much,
Feel
you know. And
overtrained.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've overtrained, and maybe I'm feeling a bit burnt out. So there were these little symptoms which were just there, and I didn't quite feel 100%. But then I still I had a full-time job, and I was doing the running, and a lot of my weekends were spent racing, and so it's very easy to attribute those things to either just getting older, or running. However, there were other symptoms which actually now, with hindsight, I wish I had known. I mean, I was very short of breath at the time. I had a huge lump in my neck, and my weight was fluctuating. My appetite was wild as well, and I just. Sort of maybe I'm just putting on weight because I'm getting older. All of these things were just not quite right. Um, but the thing is, and I think we're lucky if you are a runner, if you run a lot, you know what you should feel like when you're running. And this has served me again now. I'm menopausal now. So again, I'm like, okay, this is when I run, I know what I should feel like. And I'm not talking about just having a sort of day where you're a little bit slower or a day where you're just tired. I'm talking about
Hmm.
when you consistently run, you're running, I don't know, 2, 3 weeks at a time, you're thinking, I still don't feel quite right. I had that yardstick to think there's something up with me, and I couldn't quite tell. I kept on getting this terrible cough, um, which just got worse and worse and worse, and then it culminated in the race, which was my sixth star Chicago Marathon. And just to put it into context, I've been trying to get these stars for quite some time, and it's not the cheapest or
No,
easiest
Yeah.
pursuit
venture.
to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
So I'd spent all this money to go to Chicago. I think apart from Berlin, which I got in with Adidas and then on the ballot, all the others I'd had to qualify by running quite fast for me. And so it was really hard for me to get into these races. And I wanted my sixth star. It was Chicago, and I was with a group of friends, and we were going to get our sixth star. And I had this appalling cough. Really, it was so severe that I had to actually sort of brace myself to cough. And I remember I was in the hotel lift. But a lot of runners were there, and I started coughing, and they all started to press the buttons to get out of the lift.
Yeah.
Like
Oh no.
she does
This
not
was
sound well.
Nobody wants
yeah.
your cold or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Not the day before their marathon or
No,
like the
no.
day
They
of
were like,
or yeah.
getting out, I'm getting out. And I was like, I said to my friend, I don't feel there's something wrong. I think I need to go to the doctor. And I was like, but I need to I'm just gonna get this marathon out of the way. And
Hmm.
my
Of
husband
course,
and my
be runner brain.
I'm not waiting another whole year while you will get your sixth star. Like I'm here, we're gonna run.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Not to
and
mention all the money I spent to get
yeah,
here. Yeah.
this is happening, right? Whatever happens. And I was running and I was feeling awful. And my best friend and my husband were like literally side by side. They both could have run much faster than I did on that day, but I realized now they were looking after me. They're like, let's cross the line together. And I think they were just trying to look after me. And I remember coming in there thinking I'm feeling really like I'm going to faint. And I said to my friend, if I faint, please don't let them take me off the course. Just I'll be fine. Just let me have a minute. That's how hell bent I was on getting this stuff. Crossed the finish line and immediately collapsed. So I don't know. There was some
Oh,
part of it like I'm going to make it, and then
yeah.
ended up in the medical
Hmm.
tent, and then phoned the doctor, and then literally within 48 hours of coming back, they'd X-rayed my chest, thinking of something with my chest and my lungs because of the cough, and they found an enormous lump in my neck, and so I had to have that removed, and yeah, it was quite as cancer journeys go, I was very lucky. I sort of found out retrospectively because they took it out as soon as I saw it, and
Hmm.
then pathology on it, and it was like that was cancer. You're good. And so I had to have another operation. But I was physically cancer free, mentally a little bit damaged by because I just thought I was so fit and everything was fine, and it was
Hmm.
a bit of a shock.
I guess
Yeah.
you suddenly feel human. Yeah. You're not
And
invulnerable. You're not a super person. You're a human.
yeah, yeah, and I
Yeah.
thought, oh God, I actually, maybe, I thought I was invincible, and it was a bit of a
Yeah.
knock, and I dealt with it by running some ultra marathons. So I got those out of my system. I was like, I'm going to run 100 miles. I'm fine. And then and I did Marathon des Sables again, which was a very life affirming one to do. Having just, I mean, it was
Yeah.
I had the operation in February, and I ran Marathon des Sables in April. So I probably should have had
Wow.
it for it. I know. And then I did a 100 miler 3 weeks later, and then I was like, have a sit down. You've proved to yourself you can still run. It's good.
Yes, except that then you ended up going to Badwater.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah.
so you know, you proved it to yourself for now, but not forever.
Oh, I see
Um,
what you're saying. Yeah.
Before we
but
get to Badwater, one of the things you've the book sort of shows you starting to do and getting into is crewing for other people. I think this is a standard ultra runner thing.
It
mhm.
You
is.
know,
It
ultra
is.
running is a team sport. You need a crew around you. And so
Mm.
if you do one, you get help from people. And usually those people will need help at some stage too, because they're going to try and do one. So it becomes a like, you know, crew for your friends or and it seemed to me like you're enjoying that as much as running, crewing for
I
people.
love crewing. Yeah. So in ultramarathons, it's less so, I'm going to say, in the UK. In the UK, traditionally, we just go with whatever's in the race and what's ever at the checkpoints. Mainly, principally because a lot of our races are on the trails, which are can be quite inaccessible by vehicles, that sort of thing. So, but it's becoming a little bit more popular. But in America, crewing is, it's de rigueur for an ultramarathon. So that is basically you're running your race, let's say 100-mile race, and you've got people or a person who will be able to just give you your fuel, give you your nutrition, just make sure you're okay. And some races allow pacers, so after a certain distance, maybe 50, maybe 70 miles, you can have somebody to run with you for safety, just to keep you motivated, to make sure you
Yeah,
don't
like
fall
at
in,
night, because
yeah, fall in
overnight,
a
I mean,
river.
it
Yeah,
seems like there's a lot
Drag
of
you,
dangers.
drag
Yeah,
you
you
out of
could,
a river, drag you out of
yeah,
a camel
yeah,
spider's
yeah,
nest.
yeah.
yeah, prevent you from falling off a cliff. You know,
For
all the
safety
important
and
stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
all of those things when your brain starts going mushy. So
Yes.
so always have a pacer on every race I do. I just, if I find it extra motivating, I feel guilt. I'm like, well, they're going to give up their night now to try and just try and keep me present and moving forward. So that always really motivating. But it's sort of part of the ultra world. At some point, you really should crew somebody. You should really see what it's like on the other side. And I find it so rewarding. It's exhausting, and it's just beautiful helping somebody finish their race. Um, there's nothing better. You're not actually doing it, which is great because you can see what you tend to run quite a lot yourself. I'll normally run, I don't know, anything from sort of 10 to 30 miles crewing. It's just beautiful. It's like really is being part of the team and getting somebody over the line. And I've got far more emotional watching people I've crewed finish than I ever have for myself. I can sort of well up when I've seen somebody fight through the night stage and
Mm.
I cross the finish line in the morning, and then when it's me, I'm like, okay, yeah, let's just go home.
And
So it
is it the runner that picks sort of when you would do what? Like, so for example, the pacing. I mean, because I know some races they have like you can't have a pacer before a certain point. So
mm.
some races have rules, but otherwise, is it like the runner that j basically picks when they want to be paced? Or how does that typically work? And also for the fueling and stuff, like do they give you a spreadsheet ahead of time and then you're like at this checkpoint, give me this, this, and this? Like, how does that?
So yeah, generally speaking, it depends on the runner. I'm pretty relaxed when I have people crewing me. I'm like, just make sure I
There's
complete.
no spreadsheet.
No, but I have picked crew chiefs, people on my crew who have who have made a spreadsheet for me. So yeah, generally speaking, the runner is in charge, but what they are in charge, and it's entirely whatever they know they can eat, whatever their pace is that they want to be at a certain point. So, however, you have to have all of these discussions clear before you start running because mentally you start sort of making you can make some poor decisions, you can
Mm.
misjudge things, you can you're the runner, or this happened to me, your emotions can sway wildly from being deliriously happy to being miserable to thinking actually I don't know if I want to do this. So you have to establish all of those conversations and all of the rules before the race starts. And normally, for me or for my runners, we'll have an A, B, and a C. Like A, this is what I want to do. I want to like smash my PB, and I'm going to eat every 6 miles, and it's going to be great. And then a B, which is something which is perhaps like more realistic, and then the C, which is the emergency. I just need to finish. And so you're very much governed by your relationship with the runner. And there's some golden rules of crewing. And the first one is it's not about you, it's only about your runner. So you have to you have to do whatever it takes. And people can be in all sorts of emotional states when they run, and you just have to suck it up and tough it out. And sometimes I'll have certain methods to communicate, but like you just need to say one word. I can start talking, distract you. I can shut up. You want peace and quiet. So there's ways to establish. You need to have that all of that done before the race. But then there is a point where you have to make a decision on their behalf. Maybe they're starting to mentally get weaker, want to stop, and that's when you have to step up and be like, tough love time,
Yeah.
or I'm going to just
Okay.
really, I hear
You
you.
can do this. You'll
Yeah,
hate yourself
yeah.
afterwards if you
Yeah,
stop, but keep going.
I can
Yeah.
hear you, and I know you don't want to eat, but the thing is you're going to have to eat something now, otherwise you know you're not going to do so well. So and then you're sort of kind of like you have to be a
Mm.
little bit more forceful, and it's a really tough balance to strike. And that the better friends you are with your runner, and the more you run with them, the better you're going to be able to judge that, because you know sometimes people have fallen out.
I've seen people on some events that I've done arguing on the course.
Maybe just one last question. Um, so Badwater,
Mm.
your first Badwater experience wasn't running it, it was crewing, and you never thought that you would do Badwater. It sounded like you it's a race that's actually known for being extremely difficult. And I didn't actually realize to what extent until I read in your book, like the crew would basically, I mean, without running the race, they're basically running the race because it's
Yeah,
not like in other crewing situations. It seems like, the car with the crew bunny hops the runner. So like goes to the next checkpoint and they just kind of wait. So like maybe they can nap, maybe they can,
yeah,
but at Badwater, it seems like you're basically being followed by your crew for the entire thing. So very closely. So basically the whatever amount of time you're running, they are also not sleeping. They're maybe not running, or maybe they're sometimes running if they're running with you, but they're awake and present and
yeah.
functional and handing you things and doing things. So it seems like even just crewing was difficult. How did you go from saying, um, like I don't think Badwater's for me to being like, I think I can do Badwater?
Yeah, crewing that race is hardcore, is really hardcore. As you mentioned, you're sort of leapfrogging the runner. And a lot of ultra marathons, they have something called checkpoints, which are, every 10K, whatever, every 10 miles, whatever it is. And that's a place where you can refuel, get some more water, all of those things. Death Valley is remote. There's nothing there. There's literally three places you can buy ice and petrol. Other than that, it's miles of desert, and it's a very, very dangerous place to be. The average life expectancy in Death Valley without any water is 14 hours, and and people are running through it. And so you need your crew near. The race don't provide any water, they don't provide any fuel, so you have your crew. They are basically, without sounding too dramatic, keeping you alive. So you are moving forward, they're keeping you cool, they're keeping you iced. And it sounds ridiculous, but they are going to be stopping at the beginning, 2 miles, maybe three, and then it gets shorter and shorter and shorter as the race heats up. So
Hmm.
it is a lot of work, and the race starts at night. So you start at there's three different start times to spread you out on the roads, but 8, 9, and 10 o'clock at night. And then you run through the night. So immediately everybody's lost a night's sleep. And then you run through the heat of the day, through the hottest part of the course, which is Death Valley. And then you go through, if you're me, and
You go
most
through
people
another
will then
night.
go through, yeah,
Yeah.
we'll go through
Another
the
night.
second night. So by the second night, you are absolutely, completely incoherent. You've spent, as crew, you've spent 2 nights in a car with anything up to three other people, quite a short, small space. You're eating just, I don't know, crisps, whatever, junk food. And you have got approximately, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes every time to stop to look after your runner. And everybody's got a job. Like somebody has to do the ice, somebody has to get the food, somebody has to, it's either pacing them, somebody's looking after the car, making sure you are applying all the race rules. So it's an intense experience. So I wanted to do Badwater, said I wanted to do Badwater, read about it. It looks beautiful. I love deserts, all of those things without having ever set foot in Death Valley in July. I then crewed for the first time, and I couldn't, it's very hard to articulate how extreme that environment is, how insufferably hot it is. You step out the car and it almost hurts to breathe because the air is so hot. You can't like touch your car because you're going to burn your hands. It's unbelievable. Um, and
So
then I was
basically,
like,
you also have to keep the crew alive because the crew also needs to
you
be
have to look after
hydrated
yourself.
and
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. And people neglect that. They don't really realize. And the first time I went out, I did a 7 mile pacing stint. I didn't say anything to my runner, but I was seeing stars. I thought I was going to pass out in the last half mile. And I was like, oh my God, this is really nuts. And then I didn't say anything, got in the car, and I was like, and it took me 20 minutes for my heart rate to come down. I was absolutely
Wow.
done. I only run for maybe about 4 miles. And so you're
Right.
crewing. And so I did this experience. I crewed, and then I was like, that is I like hard races, but that it was beyond me. I experienced it so in such a raw format, I thought I can't do it. And then I got asked to crew again because I'd already crewed once, and that's quite a good experience. So I knew what I was doing. I knew how to organize the car, and I knew what to expect. And then for the third time I crewed, a lot of Brits asked me to crew for them. Um, I was crewing a really hardcore woman called Debbie. She's a very sort of pop. She's a very famous ultra runner over here. She's course record many races over here, and superb runner. And she'd been throwing up since mile 32. And it was about a mile 110. She'd been throwing up for like, I don't know, 70 miles, 80
Oh
miles.
no.
She looked at me and we were going up the final climb and she went, you know you're gonna have to do this race, Susie. And I was like, I know, I can't just keep, I'm just gonna have to do the race. And I knew, I just knew I can't keep coming back to crew. I have to experience it. And I mean that was when we were just out of lockdown. It was all of those things came together and I thought, it's now or never. I'm not getting any younger. You
Mm,
know, this if I apply and get selected, because you have to only 100 people get selected, get chosen to run.
Yeah.
You can't just apply. You can't just go and run it 'cause you need to have that experience.
Yeah.
So I'd accumulated enough experience, and so um, I just knew, I just knew that it was my destiny eventually, and did the training block of my life and stood on that start line.
wow.
And I think as a race, it's a great way to sort of to end not end the book, but sort of finish off on in terms of an event in the
Mm.
book. Yeah.
I feel like we mentioned the pandemic already twice. So once at the beginning for the catalyst to running your book, writing your book, because you basically the pandemic, coming out of the pandemic made you realize, I guess, that
The
you wanted to
wanderlust
say
came back.
yes. Yeah, you
Yeah.
wanted to say yes to more experiences.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so you said yes to Badwater and you said yes to writing a book.
Mm.
So,
Yeah, pretty much what happened. Yeah. You sort of realize, when everything's taken away from you, you think, oh, I had some opportunities there. And actually,
mhm.
life's for living, isn't it? And I've now have no regrets. And that race for me represented me
Yeah.
at the best I could be in an environment I love the most. And so it's for me it's the pinnacle of what I could do. I mean, just to let you know, there were some incredible performances. I was below average for the performance, but for me, that was me at my best. That was me doing everything I needed to do to have the perfect race. And as far as I in my head, and how I performed, I couldn't have done any better for me. And it was such a real moment. And in all my running, I've had some moments where it's been tough and miserable, and I haven't really wanted to be there and whatever, and you just finish. But for that race at the end, going up that huge mountain, Mount Whitney, I was in so much physical pain, but my heart and my soul was just soaring because I knew I was going to do it. And it was just
Mm.
it was a real moment because I hurt so much, but I was so deliriously happy with how far running had taken me. It was a real moment.
Mm. And I guess it's all those other runs, they built up your confidence for this one because, there was you mentioned in the book like one of the first times where you knew you were going to finish. It wasn't like, oh, I don't know about this, standing on the starting line kind of unsure. It was like you were, I guess you were unsure of what the race would hold and what you would experience, but you were sure that you were going to finish,
Yeah.
which is um that's amazing.
Mm. I don't ever stand on the start line wondering. I just tell myself this is happening.
That's fantastic. And I think if any of these stories or this chat has sort of touched or resonated with anybody, or even just the tone of the conversation, they should get out and get themselves a copy of the book, The Running Adventures of Susie Chan. It's more than just running adventures in there.
Mhm.
Um, to that extent, do you want to direct people anywhere in particular to get the book? Also, to just do the finish off questions, where should people go to get the book? Where should people go if they want to follow you and see what you're up to? And do you have any plans for your next adventures?
Okay, thank you. So if you want to get the book, you can get it from all the usual bookstores. You can buy it on Amazon. There's an Audible version if you wanted to listen to it whilst you're running. I've had a lot of people have it in their ears whilst they've been doing their Sunday long run.
Are
And if
you
you
the
want to,
reader?
I am, yeah, I do
Oh,
Oh,
know.
cool.
I did all of it,
fantastic.
yeah.
Okay.
Me, me reading my book. So you can check that out, and also you can find me on social. I'm quite active, particularly on Instagram. Susie Chan, SusiecChan. Come find me. I mean, you'll find me on a trail probably on that Instagram account or running up a road, running in the rain, whatever. I'm always running in that. And next, I've had a few. I've been just keeping things ticking over this year. And I'm just trying to make some decisions on next year. I feel like it's my 50th next year, so
Oh,
I feel
yes,
like I
milestone.
need something. I feel like I need something, and I'm going to try and talk my friends into coming somewhere and doing something silly with running,
Okay.
obviously.
Okay.
Ooh,
Sounds good. So stay tuned. Follow Susie on
yeah,
social media so that you can
sounds
find out
pretty
what
good.
that something's going to be.
Well, thank you for your time, Susie. It's really been special for us to talk with you. And I think you and Liz are definitely soulmates.
Hmm.
Um,
Liz,
Yeah. Maybe
let's
we'll
get a
find
race.
find yeah, we'll find a race that will
Yeah,
both be able
both
to
of
run
us.
it hot, flat,
Yeah,
yeah,
tedious. Let's go.
flat, straight.
Yeah,
Yes, long. It'll be great.
I'd love it. Thank you so much.
Summary, do
Yeah,
you want me to go first?
sure.
Yeah, okay. So, Trails and Tribulations, The Running Adventures of Susie Chan. One of the things I should say about it is this is one of the few books that I read all the way through before making any notes whatsoever. Um, I always make notes, and you do, I think, as well, Liz. I
I
always
try
make
at
notes
least.
about the books as you go, so you don't forget stuff. But I was just so involved in the story and so swept along by the narrative that I didn't really want to put the book down to make little notes. So I just kept reading and read all the way through. So that says something about the book. The different chapters and different events were coming thick and fast. I just didn't want to put the book down. I also realized that you only really report on the big events in the book, but Susie Chan has done like a huge number. I think she touched on it early on in the conversation. She's done a huge number of sort of normal half marathons and marathons all over the place. I noticed in some of her photographs, which are in the book, there's a photograph of her doing X marathon or Y marathon or this event. And she doesn't really even talk about those events because there are so many. There are a series of color photos on the inside cover, but there are also black and white photographs at the end of each chapter, which is great. You get a good feel for it. So all in all, a great read. Easy, inspiring, motivating.
I got into the book pretty quickly as well, right from the beginning. And I think it's because it just started with Susie's story about her ex-husband who was actually stealing money from her and gambling it. And so she ended up like quite a long time down the road finding out that she's in debt. And I just like couldn't imagine how betrayed she felt. And I was kind of heartbroken for her because this was her, I guess she had already gone into this relationship with her daughter. And this man was just like seemed to be so perfect. He loved her daughter, and I guess it doesn't take away from that. Like, gambling is an addiction, but I was just so heartbroken for her. And it seemed like at the beginning she felt a little stuck, and I could just imagine what that's like and how hard that is to get out of. So yeah, then to read on and she starts running and she does these multi-day races where she has to carry everything on her back except for water. And, she's experiencing these places where, well, spiders will kill her. And Alan's gonna just laugh at me because But she's also done a
Very
lot of
focused on
things.
the spiders.
I know, they just, I don't know, because they're small, they can hide everywhere, look in your shoes and
Oh, you'd
stuff.
rather have really big spiders, would you?
I take that back. I take that back. Forget I said that. I didn't say anything about them being small.
Okay,
Let's have or
moving
big
on.
or
Moving on.
anything. We're just gonna move on here. So not only that, but in some of these races, she just feels really unwell and she gets through them, and it's just I guess I loved to see how her experience proved to herself of all the things that she's capable of doing and how she just grew throughout all of these experiences. It's a great story. I mean, each individual story was a great story because a lot of these multi-day stage races, they had the stories of the people she met and, the relationships she formed, the things she had to go through. But overall, like you kind of see her growing, and it's just kind of inspiring, especially for, I was just as introverted as Susie, where I
Yeah.
think, like when I was a kid, I didn't speak to anybody that didn't speak to me first, which was good because I never really got into trouble. But it was bad because I guess, I might have passed up friendships that I could have made that I didn't because I was too shy. I found that the spirit of the running community came through in the stories. Susie was embraced by the world of runners just because she started running. And I think that's the beauty of our sport. So I loved to sort of experience that through her in the book. The book is nicely presented. It's a hardcover. It's got a great photo of Susie running through the desert with a pack on her back. And, it's like bright blue and desert sand, and it's a little bit like cartoony, as the backdrop is a little bit painted kind of. So it's a really nice cover, and I would recommend it to anyone who has enjoyed other ultra running books. So if you like Dean Karnaz's book or North by Scott Jurek, or anyone thinking of running one of these races that was mentioned during the podcast, I would recommend it to anybody that is thinking of doing any of these. Or if you
Absolutely.
just need some inspiration.
If you just need some inspiration, just listen to this podcast again. She's an absolute whirlwind, Susie, and she's an inspiration just listening to her.
Mm-hmm.
Outro time.
Yep. Your turn.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Running Book Reviews. A big thank you to the publisher Bloomsbury for providing review copies of the book, and a big thank you to Susie Chan for spending time with us today. If you'd like to leave us feedback about how we can improve the podcast, or want to suggest a book that you'd like us to review in a future episode, please leave us a comment on social media. We are Running Book Reviews on Facebook and Instagram, and on Twitter or X we are reviews_running. Please also follow us on social media to find out about new episodes when they are released, or you can just subscribe to the podcast on your favorite streaming platform. If you've been listening to us for a while and you're wondering how you can help us out, there are a few ways. Spread the word on the podcast, tell your friends, share a link, get the word out there about our podcast. We really appreciate the more readership we get, the more motivated we are to make more and more episodes. You can leave us a review on Apple Podcast, or you can leave us a rating out of five stars on Spotify. We really appreciate that, and it helps our algorithm and pushes us up the charts on the podcast charts. We're also on a platform called Buy Me a Coffee. So if you go to Buy Me a Coffee platform and search under creators for Running Book Reviews, you'll find us there. There's a thing you can do to buy us a coffee if you want, but you don't have to. You can just look at the things we've posted there, various photographs and articles and outtakes, all the extra little bits and bobs sitting there for you to enjoy. That's all for today from Running Book Reviews. Get out there and run. Bye for now.
Bye.